It was a gloomy autumn evening when Sarah first noticed the moving trucks pulling up next door. The neighborhood had always been peaceful, with friendly faces and a sense of community. Sarah, a young woman in her late 20s, had lived in her quaint house for years, finding comfort in the routine of her quiet life. The new neighbors, however, brought an unsettling aura with them. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the street, Sarah couldn't help but feel a chill run down her spine. She watched from behind her curtains as a family unloaded their belongings into the seemingly ordinary house next door. The family consisted of a middle-aged couple, John and Emily, and their teenage daughter, Lily. They appeared friendly enough, exchanging pleasantries with other neighbors who came to welcome them. Sarah, however, couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Over the next few weeks, Sarah observed the newcomers from a distance. John and Emily kept to themselves, rarely interacting with the community. Lily, on the other hand, attended the local high school, but her classmates spoke in hushed tones about her peculiar behavior. Rumors circulated about strange occurrences in the house next door, adding an air of mystery to the seemingly ordinary family. One evening, as Sarah took a stroll around the neighborhood, she caught a glimpse of Lily staring out of her bedroom window. Their eyes met briefly, and Sarah felt a shiver down her spine. There was something haunting in Lily's gaze, something that sent a wave of unease through Sarah's entire being. As the days passed, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that the new neighbors were hiding something. Late at night, she heard strange sounds emanating from their house, muffled whispers, occasional footsteps, and faint, eerie music. Sleep became elusive as Sarah's imagination ran wild, conjuring up images of dark secrets lurking behind the walls. Determined to unravel the mystery, Sarah decided to strike up a conversation with Lily. One afternoon, she approached the teenager as she was returning home from school. The conversation, however, left Sarah with more questions than answers. Lily was elusive, offering vague responses and deflecting any attempts to delve into her family's background. Despite her growing unease, Sarah couldn't find any concrete evidence of wrongdoing. The house next door remained a puzzle, a place cloaked in shadows and guarded secrets. Little did she know that her quest for truth would plunge her into a world of darkness she never could have imagined. As Sarah delved deeper into the mystery surrounding her new neighbors, she couldn't escape the feeling that her life was becoming entwined with theirs. The unease grew, fueled by the enigmatic nature of the family next door. One stormy night, Sarah was startled awake by the sound of thunder crashing outside. The relentless rain hammered against her window, but amidst the cacophony, she heard something else, a distant, haunting melody. Curiosity overcoming fear, Sarah found herself drawn to the source of the eerie music. In her pajamas and armed with nothing but a flashlight, Sarah ventured into the storm. The melody led her to the house next door, where a dim light flickered through the curtains. The unease in her gut intensified as she stood on the doorstep, debating whether to knock or retreat. Just as she raised her hand to knock, the door creaked open on its own. The interior was dimly lit, casting long shadows that danced with the flickering flames of candles. Sarah hesitated but eventually stepped inside, driven by a force beyond her control. The house was a labyrinth of narrow hallways and dimly lit rooms. As Sarah explored, she stumbled upon a room unlike the others. Its walls were adorned with strange symbols, and an old book lay open on a wooden table. The haunting melody that had led her here seemed to emanate from the very walls. Her flashlight flickered, casting eerie shadows that seemed to move independently. Sarah's heart raced as she flipped through the ancient pages of the book. It contained incantations and illustrations of rituals, leaving her breathless with terror. She couldn't comprehend the dark secrets that unfolded before her eyes. A sudden noise startled her. Turning around, she found Lily standing in the doorway. The teenager's eyes were wide, and a mixture of fear and regret played across her face. Sarah demanded answers, her voice trembling with a mix of anger and terror. Lily reluctantly began to unravel the truth. Her family, it seemed, had a dark history tied to the occult. They had moved to this quiet neighborhood to escape their past, but it was a past that refused to stay buried. The haunting melodies were part of ancient rituals, and the strange occurrences in the house were a consequence of forces they could not control. Sarah, now caught in the web of the family's secrets, had to make a choice. Would she turn away, pretending she never discovered the dark truth, or would she confront the growing darkness that threatened to consume them all? The storm outside raged on as Sarah grappled with her decision, torn between the safety of her mundane life and the unsettling reality that lurked next door. As the storm raged outside, Sarah stood in the dimly lit room, grappling with the weight of the unearthed secrets. Lily's eyes pleaded for understanding, revealing a vulnerability that seemed incongruent with the darkness surrounding them. Sarah took a deep breath, her decision crystallizing in the stillness of the room. She couldn't turn a blind eye to the shadows that threatened to engulf not only Lily's family, but also her own sense of normalcy. Determined, she asked Lily how they could stop the dark forces that lingered within the walls of their homes. Lily, hesitant but relieved, revealed that the rituals were part of a cursed legacy that had plagued her family for generations. There was a way to break the curse, but it required confronting the spirits that haunted them and performing a ritual at a specific time and place. The task was perilous, and Sarah knew that she was willingly stepping into the abyss. Together, they formulated a plan. As the appointed night arrived, the two women ventured into the heart of the supernatural labyrinth that lay hidden within the seemingly ordinary house. Candles flickered, casting elongated shadows that seemed to whisper secrets of long-forgotten torment. The ritual unfolded with an unsettling mix of fear and determination. Chants echoed through the house, and the air crackled with an otherworldly energy. The walls seemed to breathe, pulsating with a malevolent force that resisted the intrusion. As the final incantation left their lips, the atmosphere shifted. The haunting melodies that had plagued the neighborhood for weeks ceased, and an eerie calm settled over the house. Sarah and Lily exchanged glances, a mixture of relief and exhaustion etched on their faces. However, the shadows weren't done with them. A spectral figure materialized before them, its eyes gleaming with a malevolent intelligence. The curse demanded a sacrifice, and the spirit hungered for its due. In a harrowing turn of events, Sarah realized that breaking the curse required a sacrifice of immense personal value. The spirit demanded a soul, and the weight of that revelation hung heavy in the air. Lily, driven by a mix of guilt and desperation, stepped forward. Tears streamed down her face as she embraced Sarah, whispering words of gratitude. The specter, satisfied with the offering, dissipated into the ether, leaving behind an oppressive silence. The storm outside began to subside, and a pale dawn broke on the horizon. Sarah stood alone in the now still house, grappling with the aftermath of the supernatural ordeal. Lily's sacrifice had saved both families from the curse, but it left a void that echoed with the chilling reminder of the darkness that lurked beneath the surface of their seemingly ordinary lives. In the weeks that followed, the neighborhood gradually returned to its tranquil state. The memories of the haunting melodies and eerie occurrences faded, becoming fragments of a shared nightmare. Sarah, however, carried the weight of that night with her, forever changed by the encounter with the shadows that dwelled next door. As time passed, the house where the dark rituals had unfolded remained a silent sentinel, holding secrets that would never fully be erased. The scars of that fateful night lingered in the minds of those who had dared to confront the supernatural, a testament to the thin veil that separated the mundane from the mysterious. Peter had always considered himself lucky to live in a quiet suburban neighborhood. Nestled between rows of cozy houses, his home radiated warmth. However, a new neighbor had recently moved in next door, and an unsettling atmosphere seemed to follow. The neighbor's name was Mr. Holloway, a tall, thin man with a perpetual frown etched onto his face. Peter first noticed him while tending to his garden. Mr. Holloway stood in his yard, watching Peter with an intensity that sent shivers down his spine. As days turned into weeks, Peter began to notice peculiar things about Mr. Holloway. Odd sounds echoed from his house at all hours, and shadows danced behind the curtains, revealing a mysterious, solitary life. Peter's curiosity got the best of him, and one evening, he decided to introduce himself. Approaching Mr. Holloway's door, Peter hesitated before knocking. The door creaked open slowly, revealing a dimly lit interior. The air inside was heavy, and an unsettling smell lingered. Mr. Holloway stood in the doorway, his eyes cold and distant. "Hello, I'm Peter, your neighbor," Peter stammered, trying to hide his unease. Mr. Holloway's lips curled into a forced smile. "Nice to meet you, Peter." The conversation was short and awkward, leaving Peter more unsettled than before. As he walked back home, he couldn't shake the feeling that Mr. Holloway was hiding something. Late one night, Peter heard strange noises coming from next door. Curiosity overcoming fear, he peered through his bedroom window and saw Mr. Holloway carrying heavy bags to his backyard. What could he be hiding in the dead of night? The next morning, Peter decided to investigate. He snuck into Mr. Holloway's yard, finding a peculiar mound covered in a tarp. Pulling back the covering, Peter's eyes widened in horror. It was a makeshift grave, and the earth beneath seemed disturbed. Fear gripped him as he considered the implications. What was Mr. Holloway hiding, and why was there a grave in his backyard? Unable to shake the disturbing discovery, Peter grappled with the decision to involve the authorities. The fear of retaliation from Mr. Holloway and the unknown compelled him to dig deeper on his own. Researching the history of the neighborhood, Peter uncovered a string of mysterious disappearances dating back several decades. The common thread in each case was that the missing individuals had once lived in Mr. Holloway's house. Determined to expose the truth, Peter delved into the dark past of his neighbor. He discovered that Mr. Holloway had changed his identity multiple times, leaving behind a trail of unanswered questions and suspicious incidents. The man seemed to be a phantom, leaving destruction in his wake. As Peter continued his investigation, he stumbled upon a hidden room in Mr. Holloway's house. The room was filled with old newspaper clippings, photographs, and a chilling diary. It chronicled the disappearances of each previous resident, detailing the twisted motives behind Mr. Holloway's actions. Shaken to the core, Peter realized he was dealing with a serial predator. The diary hinted at a pattern, suggesting that Mr. Holloway targeted specific individuals with hidden secrets. The graves in the backyard were the final resting places of those unfortunate enough to cross his path. The more Peter uncovered, the deeper he sank into the web of darkness surrounding Mr. Holloway. The diary hinted at an imminent threat, suggesting that Peter might be the next target. Haunted by the weight of his discovery, Peter knew he had to act. He reached out to a journalist friend, sharing the harrowing tale and hoping to expose Mr. Holloway's sinister deeds. As the story gained traction, law enforcement became involved, and the neighborhood was gripped by fear. But with the noose tightening around Mr. Holloway, Peter couldn't shake the feeling that the predator was aware of his involvement. The chilling game of cat and mouse had begun, and Peter found himself trapped in a nightmare he never could have imagined. As the news of Mr. Holloway's dark past spread through the neighborhood, a palpable tension settled in the air. Law enforcement ramped up their efforts to apprehend the elusive predator, and Peter found himself at the center of the storm. Unable to escape the paranoia that gripped him, Peter started noticing subtle signs that someone was watching him. Shadows seemed to linger outside his windows, and he received cryptic messages hinting at the danger that lurked around every corner. One evening, as Peter returned home, he felt a chilling presence behind him. He quickened his pace, glancing over his shoulder. There in the dimly lit street stood Mr. Holloway, his cold eyes locked onto Peter's with an unsettling determination. The predator had become the pursuer, and Peter's world descended into chaos. Fear gnawed at his sanity, and sleep became a distant memory. Every creak of the floorboards and rustle of the wind outside sent shivers down his spine. Desperate to stay one step ahead, Peter sought refuge in the journalist's home. the one person who could help expose Mr. Holloway's sinister intentions. Together, they crafted a plan to expose the predator and bring justice to the victims. The chase escalated, with Mr. Holloway leaving ominous messages at Peter's doorstep. The predator reveled in the psychological torment, playing a sick game that left Peter teetering on the edge of madness. The climax of the ordeal arrived on a stormy night. Peter, armed with the evidence collected, confronted Mr. Holloway in the presence of law enforcement. The predator's icy facade cracked, revealing a twisted satisfaction as he was led away in handcuffs. But the nightmare was far from over. In the aftermath, Peter continued to receive unsettling messages, hinting at a network of darkness that extended beyond Mr. Holloway. The true extent of the predator's reach sent shockwaves through the community, leaving everyone questioning the safety of their seemingly idyllic neighborhood. In the end, justice prevailed, and Mr. Holloway was held accountable for his crimes. However, the scars left on Peter's psyche ran deep. The once quiet neighborhood became a haunting reminder of the thin veneer that masked the horrors lurking beneath the surface.